What's up, BookTube? Sandy Golson back here with a very special announcement. In today's video, I am going to announce my 2020 fiction book of the year. Now, I have read, at the time of this taping, close to 70 books this year. And it's largely been fiction books that I've read, but I have read an increased number of nonfiction books this year because I will also be doing a nonfiction book of the year. So, be on the lookout for that one as well. Now, for my fiction book of the year, I read this book early this year, and it was a book that was highly anticipated. I pre-ordered this book, and I was really looking forward to it, even though it was going to be on a very controversial topic. It was going to be a book that was somewhat triggering. I was prepared for all of that, but what I wasn't quite as prepared for is how exceptionally well written the book was, how engrossing the story was, and while triggering certainly for some people, it was a powerful read that I thoroughly enjoyed. And so, with that said, my fiction book of the year is My Dark Vanessa by Kate Elizabeth Russell. And this book, I devoured this book earlier this year. So, and I don't know how many highlights there were for a lot of people in 2020, but this was certainly a highlight for me. This book was exceptionally fast-paced. It was a book told along dual storylines in 2017, so current, and in 2000 when the events largely happened in the story. And so let me just read a little bit of the inside cover of this story. But first of all, I'm going to read a quote endorsement from Stephen King, the legendary horror writer. And Stephen King wrote, "My Dark Vanessa is a hard story to read and a harder one to put down. A well-constructed package of dynamite." And that's what Stephen King said. And that's an apt description of this particular book because it really grabs you right off the bat. It's powerful right off the bat. And though it's a moderately lengthy book, it looks like over 360 pages. Even though it's a slightly lengthy book, not hugely lengthy, it's still engrossing really from start to finish. I did not find myself skimming this book at all. I was really interested in this book from start to finish, really hanging on every little storyline, every little plot and subplot of things that were going on, all the different characters that were introduced during the course of this particular novel. So let me again read a little bit from the inside cover. Exploring the psychological dynamics of the relationship between a precocious yet naive teenage girl and her magnetic and manipulative teacher, a brilliant, all-consuming read that marks the explosive debut of an extraordinary new writer. So, a little bit more. In the year 2000, bright, ambitious, and yearning for adulthood, 15-year-old Vanessa Wee becomes entangled in an affair with Jacob Strain, her magnetic and guileful 42-year-old English teacher. Now, the year 2017. Amid the rising wave of allegations against powerful men, a reckoning is coming due. Strain has been accused of sexual abuse by a former student who reaches out to Vanessa, and now Vanessa suddenly finds herself facing an impossible choice: remain silent, firm in the belief that her teenage self willingly engaged in this relationship, or redefine herself and the events of her past. But how can Vanessa reject her first love, the man who fundamentally transformed her and has been a persistent presence in her life? Is it possible that the man she loved as a teenager and who professed to worship only her may be far different from what she has always believed? And so you get a feel for where this story is going, this sort of Lolita type of story, but with a depth that I really appreciated. It was really a powerful telling of the story and the inner conflict that was being felt by Vanessa, the main character, as people were reaching out to her and she was trying to reconcile her own feelings from the past when the situation went down, and her feelings in the present as the world is changing around her and she's finding herself having to make difficult choices now that she sees, maybe with a little bit clearer vision, some of the things that are going on. So it was just, again, a powerful read. It just grabs you right off the bat. And I didn't really mark this particular book up a lot, but I feel like I remember so much from this book and really enjoyed so much of it. There aren't very many books that I feel like, man, I wouldn't mind reading that book over, but this is definitely one that I'm going to strongly consider rereading after now that I've let it digest, and we're coming up on, in a few months it'll be like a year since I actually read this book. It could be a time to maybe think about either rereading it or skimming it, or just trying to get a different perspective on it, maybe read a few more reviews of this particular book. Gillian Flynn, who's quoted, "Brilliant and stunning, an absolute must read," and just more endorsements on the back cover of this particular book. And so again, it's triggering for a lot of people in a lot of ways, and there are things that are going to be really shocking and kind of difficult to process and difficult to understand the way people are thinking. There are going to be times where you're going to look at characters and you're like, what are you thinking? What are you doing? Why did you not do this? Or how come this didn't happen? Or why were these choices made? There are so many questions that you're going to ask yourself throughout this book, and you're going to be angry and frustrated with some characters at points, and you're going to be yet moved and emotional in support of characters at different points. And so it's definitely a roller coaster ride of emotions, and that is one of the reasons that, and a really outstanding writing. This is a book that was definitely well crafted, that this author really put her heart and soul into this book, and it really reveals that in just a really powerful and really well told story. So my 2020 book of the year is My Dark Vanessa by Kate Elizabeth Russell.